First, though, pressure mounts on President Biden to stand aside as high-profile Democrats, including reportedly former President Barack Obama, turn on him. So can he cling on? Let's discuss this with our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks. Simon, hello.
Hello, Vanessa.
Well, this conversation and this question has been asked repeatedly. It's now weeks, isn't it, since that appallingly embarrassing and, I don't know, what would you call it, just kind of heartbreaking in many, many ways, so-called debate with Donald Trump, in which, Joe Biden seemed to be struggling so badly and severely that people all over the world began to conclude instantly that he was no longer, unfortunately and very sadly, up to the job.
Yes, absolutely. It's been almost a month. We're at the 3-week mark now since that debate that took place down in Atlanta. And of course, remember that it was a debate that Joe Biden initiated. He wanted it because he thought the earliest television debate in US presidential election history could help him turn his fortunes around and improve his standing in those all-important battleground states. The 6 or 7 states that sometimes vote Democrat, sometimes vote Republican, always decide the outcome of the election. Far from doing that, it sparked an uprising against his candidacy. The Democrats have now frittered away the last 3 weeks. They have demonstrated and are continuing to demonstrate total disunity, internecine warfare that by the hour, Vanessa, is intensifying. We're in a situation now where President Biden, recuperating, and in fact he has now tested COVID negative, but recuperating from COVID-19 at his seaside vacation home in Delaware, is under mounting pressure that is absolutely clearly being orchestrated by 2 main people. The former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, herself, by the way, 84 and running for re-election in her congressional district in California, and former President Barack Obama, who has, Pelosi at least, is clearly, she's publicly out there saying to members of Congress, look, if you feel like you need to express strong views about Joe Biden leaving the campaign, go right ahead and do it. And she and Charles Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, are sort of orchestrating this slow turning up of the heat underneath Biden. So every single day, there's a drip of more elected lawmakers coming out and calling for him to go because her private conversations with Biden several days ago were rebuffed. Obama is keeping his hand hidden from view, but at that holiday home in Delaware, Joe Biden is reportedly getting increasingly angry, feeling increasingly disrespected, and is fuming about the role that these 2, and I think it's now fair to call them former allies and friends of his, are playing in the effort to oust him from power, and he is digging in.
But all along, people have been saying, why isn't it Jill Biden, beloved wife of Joe Biden, who steps in to protect her husband from all of these things, from feeling diminished and disrespected, from feeling frustrated and discounted and insulted, and from in any other way shaming or embarrassing or humiliating himself on the world stage. It's been asked and asked, hasn't it? Why isn't she the person who says to him, look, Joe, really, you've had your day and, you've done a commendable job, but you're really not up to the strain and it's not your fault and everybody loves you, but don't do any more of it or something of that. You can see that's what I would have said if I'd been Jill Biden, can't you? That would have been my script. Why doesn't she blinking well say something?
So there are no good actors in this drama. Jill Biden's opportunity to try and persuade her husband to drop out of the presidential race should have been exercised a year ago.
Right.
We're now 3.5 months away from Election Day. She is reportedly desperate to try and protect his legacy. She does not want him bowing out of this race now because she believes that is the only thing he will be remembered for, and he will not be remembered for what have undoubtedly been his substantial legislative achievements in office. Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, is now telling California Democrats not only does she favor Joe Biden leaving the stage, but she wants to block the concept of a coronation of Vice President Kamala Harris. She's saying that she favors an open primary, essentially, an open opportunity for anybody that wants to throw their hat in the ring to do so, and then to sort it all out at the convention in Chicago next month. This is the same Nancy Pelosi who 12 months ago absolutely rebuffed efforts by a generation of younger Democrats who wanted her to go to Joe Biden and say, don't run for re-election. Let's have an open primary contest. Let's let the next generation, if they want to, compete with Kamala Harris. So everybody is acting way too late. And unfortunately, in the case of Nancy Pelosi, I think really opening herself up to the criticism that she's basically trying to subvert the outcome of the primary process that did take place. Joe Biden won the primaries fair and square. They had a chance to put other candidates up. The Democratic elites circled the wagons and made sure that wasn't going to happen. So if you're Joe Biden or Jill Biden, you're sitting there in Delaware saying, well, hang on a second. He's got all of these delegates lined up behind him, ready to make him the Democratic Party's nominee in Chicago in just a matter of whatever it is now, a month's time. Who is Nancy Pelosi, for example, to be out there engineering the ouster of this man when she was complicit, along with all of the others that could see for months that what we were all seeing, that he was slowing down, that this was going to be a very high bar for him to meet in this election. The Democrat elites absolutely rebuffed all of those descriptions. They insisted they were fake news, it was misinformation. Now, of course, we know that all of it was true.
And the story of Kamala Harris is bewildering, I think, to many of us in the United Kingdom, because at the beginning, at the inauguration, it looked as if this was such a promising alliance, and that she was such an interesting and kind of dynamic and, you know, obviously diverse and unusual appointment. And then she just seemed to peter out altogether. It was almost as if she was obliterated. What happened to her? And
let me say, having said there are no good actors here, I mean, I think one does have to pay some tribute to Kamala Harris, who is actively every single day saying, I'm campaigning with Joe Biden in this election campaign. We are the ticket. She addressed funders yesterday in a private meeting that apparently didn't go well because they obviously wanted to see some daylight between her and Biden, and she evinced absolutely none of it. I think Kamala Harris has had difficulties as vice president, partly because she was unhappy with some of the assignments she was given by President Biden. She groused privately, but it was then reported publicly about Biden handing her the immigration crisis to try and oversee. And that struck many people as being sort of odd, because there is in many ways no bigger problem that the United States is facing than the immigration crisis on its southern border. So why would you be complaining that the president has handed you this opportunity to go and prove your chops and, earn some respect? She's also had terrible difficulty with personnel management in her own office and inner circle. And that's something that's followed her from the Senate. She does not have a good track record of dealing with people who work with her. So that's been a bit of a revolving door. And for most of this presidency, she has notched up approval ratings lower even than those of the president that she serves, although those did slightly turn around a few weeks ago. And I think she's 1 or 2 points ahead of Joe Biden, but that's largely because he has sunk like such a stone. But there's no doubt that she will feel, and millions of Democrats will feel, particularly women Democrats, Democrats of color, they will feel that if she is somehow, there's an end run done around her, and she is prevented from being the heir apparent to Biden, and I suspect Biden might feel this as well, that she will have also been completely cheated. And so this is a party, Vanessa, that is, and this is all playing out in front of the American voters, at the end of a week in which the Republicans have unified around Donald Trump in ways that even Donald Trump couldn't possibly ever have imagined. This is a party, by contrast, shredding itself in front of the American public.
I feel as if you've just broadcast an episode of Dynasty in its peak, at its absolute prime. I mean, really beautiful bulletin from you, Simon. And the most fascinating, isn't it? Evolution of events is absolutely remarkable.
I mean, it would be funny and amusing if it weren't so serious.
Quite.
I mean, we're talking about an election for the man or woman, maybe, who's going to have their finger on the nuclear button. The difficulties and problems that this country faces are so grave, and instead of witnessing any serious conversation about how to deal with them, we're seeing, I mean, you've seen in the Donald Trump speech at the convention back in Milwaukee, you know, a litany of grievance and heavy-handed approaches, particularly to issues like immigration, threatening the deportation of millions of illegal immigrants from the United States. And on the Democratic side, you're hearing absolutely nothing whatsoever about policy. Indeed, it was only about 10 days ago that you could finally go to joebiden.com and find out what he wanted to do in a second term in office. I've been tracking this for the whole of this year. And for the first 7 months of this year, the only thing you could do at joebiden.com was contribute money to his campaign. You could not find out what his plan was for a second 4 years in office.
You have blown our minds, Simon Marks. What a fantastic bulletin. Absolutely tremendous. Hope we get to speak again. I enjoyed it hugely. You're right. It would be hilarious were it not so incredibly serious.